New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
Rev Ray Anderson here.
And this is New Thought today for the 28th of November. Oh my God, guys, it's almost Christmas. And we're here today. We do have a special guest with us, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. He is the spiritual director, founding minister of the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts. And I got it right today. I'm happy about that. And no stranger to the program. You've been with us a few times now. So, Brother Raymont, welcome back. Welcome back. Good to see you, sir.
Likewise, great to be with you both and, kick the hornet's nest and do all that good stuff, trouble in the water.
Well, I don't know. All right, we're going to talk about this, folks, because we had a heck of a discussion in the pregame. And I want to say, I don't know so much, is it you kicked a hornet's nest or are you just building your own hornet's nest?
Well, so I kicked the hornet's nest to get the hornets gone so I can set up the honeybees so that I can, milk and honey the rest of life.
Okay. We're going to go into that. Folks, if you're wondering what we're talking about, Brother Raymont put out a post this week on Facebook. It immediately jumped to the top of my attention. It has been garnering a lot of response and a lot of activity and creating a whole lot of extra work for you, it seems. So we want to kind of jump into that today a little bit and explore that topic. However, before we get there, I want to make sure that we don't get lost in the shuffle, as it were. Brother Raymont, tell us a little bit more about your ministry, the Center for Integrated Arts. Help us to understand a little bit more about what it is you do and why the work that you do is so important.
I don't know what I do. So, no, but okay. So as I was rounding, coming around the home stretch with my time with being the spiritual director for CSL Greater Baltimore, around the time that I got diagnosed with prostate cancer and all that, I was like, yeah, something's got to shift. It's time for some changes. And I don't remember exactly who it was. It may have been Julie Lobato. No, because someone recommended I speak to her. And I was like, okay, so this is what's up. Like, I want to get the community prepared. I want to give them 4 months to get stuff together before I'm out. So she said, well, what are you going to do next? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. She said, have you ever thought about a teaching center? And I thought, she misspoke. I thought she said teaching chapter. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do a teaching chapter. She said, no, teaching center. Wait, say that again? Teaching center, right? Center. I was like, well, what is that? Once she explained what it was, and the key thing that caught me was, basically, you get to do this thing called Science of Mind and Spirit, how you want to do it. Like, you don't have to use the CSL branding logo, like all this stuff. I'm like, wait. You do know who you're talking to, right? You're telling me I get to do spirituality how I want. So I'm like, I'm pulling my roots into this. I've been a visual artist and a performing artist and a theater artist and martial artist. So I said, that has been my ministry for years. So I want to integrate, because it's what my ancestors did. They integrated music and dance as spiritual practice on both the African ancestors and the indigenous ancestors. So I'm like, it's part of my DNA. So what can I do to bring that energy to Science of Mind and Spirit and the community that I'm serving. So basically, it's using all of the arts as spiritual practice. So it's not just meditating, but it's meditating the way Batman would meditate, or meditating the way Silver Surfer would meditate, or it's doing whatever, journaling the way, T'Challa of Wakanda would journal. Like, it's literally embodying all of what it means to be an artist, because this thing called ministry, it's an art form. So how do we integrate that and live that?
Wow. I like that concept of, the thing that sticks out in my mind, which I think should be on everybody's mind, regardless of your ideology or philosophy or systemic way of living, is that the more we can integrate all of life into the whole idea of life, the less challenges, the less conflict, the less we're going to face, because life itself inherently is integrated. We have a system made up of different parts, but they are integrated in how they support this thing called the body temple. And so when we can begin to take our examples from, I'll say, true life, right? Because sometimes we become grafted life, because we got so many ideas and things running around our head, it gets grafted. But when we look at nature, Gaia, the planet, the web of life, I mean, they call it by many things. When we look at that, there is an inherent checks and balances that takes place, and that is perfect when you can begin to embody that, and these things play out in your life. So I applaud that 100%.
That balance of yin yang. Like,
yes.
it shows up everywhere, except when we compartmentalize. It's like, when I was growing up, and you would get the little TV dinners, and you had the little section for the corn and the little section for the meatloaf, and it's like, look, this doesn't work. Why do we try to compartmentalize our lives like this, when we can just give me a plate and let me put on the plate the way I want to put on the plate? Yeah. Like, that's what life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So I'm going to jump off on that, because you put it on the plate. You opened every compartment that I think I'm going to call it new thought, because here's the thing, folks. Myself, Elzia, and I believe you, Raymont, as well, predominantly brought up in the culture that is now known as Centers for Spiritual Living, formerly known as religious science, and Raymont shaking his head. So I thought you were an SOM guy in the New Thought world. I know we all have a history, history before all of that.
Oh, yes. In terms of it, yes.
But as far as our New Thought teachings, we've all kind of come up in the culture that is now known as Centers for Spiritual Living. However, there are other communities and other cultures out there, and other organizations that create the banner that is New Thought. And the conversation we're wading into today, I think, goes beyond the organizational structures that we have been brought up in, that we've been indoctrinated in. However, those are the places where it's easiest for us to see the examples of what we're going to talk about. So if you're watching and you were brought up in more of the unity movement in your New Thought education, hey, great, no problem. I think you're going to see parallels. And if you've been brought up on more of a divine science diet of how to embrace New Thought, I think you're going to see some of that as well. So you put out this post. I think it was this one, or it might have just been the one, but this is what we're talking about. Is we want to have an open discussion to identify, strategize, and develop relevant, applicable plans to create a new paradigm for New Thought. And it's all under the banner of decolonizing New Thought. So I think you might have kicked two hornets' nests, one with each foot at the same time. But tell us, Raymont, how did it come to you? How did this term decolonizing New Thought? How did and where was the courage to step out into the forefront and say, yeah, I'm ready to guide this? conversation.
But therein lies the thing, Robert. I was not ready for what happened. I didn't even have my surfboard when the wave came. Okay, so normally what happens is on Mondays I post this thing where it's like it's Monday Q&A, ask Reverend Ray whatever you want to ask Reverend Ray. As long as you do it with respect, you can ask me anything. So, and people will, ask questions on Facebook, or they'll private message me, or they'll send me an email because I give them the space to do that in case they want to remain anonymous. Ooh, the things people ask me sometimes. But this one young woman asked me a question about something that she's heard me say repeatedly in many of my Sunday messages referencing colonization or decolonizing, New Thought, or because I've used it in a variety of ways. And she wanted to know, like, what do you mean? When you say this, what do you mean? So I, being raised by Charles Anderson, I did what my dad told me to do. I asked her first, well, when you hear this, what does it mean to you? So we started a conversation. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to post that question on Facebook. What does this mean to you? And the floodgates opened. And as a result of me just simply posting that basic question of what is decolonizing New Thought? What does it mean? What does it look like? What are examples of, et cetera, it birthed into a group of 50 plus people who want to now gather on Zoom and discuss, as well as on Facebook group where like there's lively discussions about various things already happening. So that's basically where it came from. And the reason I've been using the term is, we get the global themes and whatnot. And, I do a Wednesday night Science of Mind and Spirit discussion group and a bunch of stuff. And, as we go through, what's in the textbook, or when Ernest Holmes said this, or when Emma Curtis Hopkins said whatever, or, Emmett Fox and the mental equivalent. And he uses the shoe shine boy, the shoe black, as his example of once you set your mind, you too can be a successful shoe shine boy. What? Wait, time out, bro. Time out. You do realize that had he had the opportunity to aspire to something greater than what the culture would allow him to be, dude might have been a CEO of his own, but the culture, because like we could really go there and be like, okay, so we live in this place called North America. Well, North America is a term that the European colonizers gave this space. It ain't that. It was called Turtle Island. Like the people who were here, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Anishinaabe people. They refer to it as Turtle Island. So wait a minute. So if I go over to Z's house and I take that thing sitting to your right, the thing we call lamp, and I say, from this point forward, I shall call this cantaloupe. Okay, listen, just because you snatched it and changed the name, but we operate within a system that is the energy. So whenever I go through like quotes and whatnot, and it's very patriarchal, it's very God is still, we still reference God, many, not all of us, but many in our movement, a New Thought, still reference God as he, him, his, and the Lord, he, and all this stuff. And I'm like, do we realize that New Thought was birthed in the energy of Christianity, which is a westernized version of Christianity, which is a colonized version of Christianity. Before we even knew who Ernest Holmes was, somebody was sipping from this is white Jesus. And then they were giving that version too in the New Thought lexicon. When Emma Curtis Hopkins refers to a Kaffir in her book Mental Science, Kaffir is the South African word for N. But wait, but we refer to her as she is the mother of New Thought. She is the teacher of teachers. But she used the South African N word in one of her books. There's a story of a young black girl who had kinky hair, and the family and wanted it straight. So they prayed for her to have straight hair, and they prayed, and her hair was straightened. Ooh, go ahead, hot comb. Like, Do we realize that that's colonization? You can't accept her. That's why we have the Crown Act now. Stop, get your hands out of black people's hair, telling black people what you can. It's colonization. So for me, it's where does this show up in our spirituality? Where does this show up in our theology? Where are we doing further harm to marginalized, which are actually the global majority, the marginalized groups of people based upon the theology that we're giving them?
You know,
consciousness.
You bring up a reminder point for me that I had in a conversation just yesterday, talking about the mindset or the schizophrenic mindset of white America in the South, which is where I grew up, and saw white and colored this, that, and the other. But imagine the mindset of the children who were raised and taken care of by black nannies. And there was a cultural statement of how they were less than, couldn't do, won't do, never do. But at the same time, that rhetoric is being taught from a cultural perspective. But when I need my homework helped, that person who's less than and can't be educated was the one who helped me. When I fell down trying to learn to ride my bike, well, forget that. The person who helped me learn to ride my bike, first of all, was this person. And then when I fell and scraped my knee, it was that person who fixed it. Now, imagine the schizophrenic ideological mindset that here is somebody culturally that I'm supposed to despise, look down on, they could never be. But everything that I need in life to survive, grow, and sustain is coming from that person. And so the colonization becomes a real mess, and decolonizing that or defracting that, if we put it in some modern terms, in terms of energy and power, how do we do that?
Right.
And what is the fallout? And who will be pissed off for one reason or another when that becomes the mainstay of the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be. Can I get a ticket? I want to sit down and watch.
Ooh, yes. Ooh.
Well, I'm pretty sure I can tell you who's going to get pissed off. All the white folk that have been benefiting from this all along. Yeah. And as you were sharing, Raymont, it struck me that I often feel like I'm the guy that should keep my mouth shut in conversations such as this, because I am the white guy and I am cisgendered, heteronormative. I am what I think. What was her name from? A once famous lesbian singer said that a white heterosexual male is the lowest rung on the evolutionary ladder. Melissa Etheridge, that's who said that. Melissa Etheridge said that. And I often feel like my job is really to listen, and to consider, where did I play a part? Where did I contribute to that? Mm-hmm. And for the most part, right, I think a lot of the white folk, those of us that are in New Thought, a lot of us ran away from this exact experience in the Christian churches. We woke up to a realization that everything I had been told and everything I had been taught was a lie. Yeah. I'm not special just because I'm white. I'm not better just because I'm white. Yeah, I can drive faster and get into better schools and talk myself out of speeding tickets when I do get pulled over, and I'm less likely to get beaten on the streets, and I'm less likely to be sent to jail for minor offenses. And when you wake up from that, it as Zia is saying, there's a little bit of trauma there. There's a little bit of, what did I do to these people that I counted as a friend? I didn't come up through high school being a racist. I felt I was progressive in my approach and in my engagement and trying to learn. But then you wake up to the fact that, wait, I am the problem. Even if I individually am not. Mm-hmm. I am what I represent is the problem. And it brings to light in the New Thought movement, we're not very colorful. We're pretty damn white when it comes right down to it. Now, here on New Thought Media Network, I try very hard to make sure that that isn't the case, and that we can demonstrate a new way of building new thought. And that's part of what I love in that image we shared, is you're talking about how do we create a new paradigm in New Thought. And I would love to jump into that for a little bit. What do you see as the vision for New Thought, assuming we successfully move through a conversation of decolonization?
So, great question. So, for me, it's always this idea of, okay, so as a pause, within CSL, and I don't know what the other vision and whatnot for unity and agape and divine science, et cetera, I don't know what their vision is. Ours, a world that works for all. Okay, it's easy, it's a great catchphrase, gotcha. What does that look like? So I, as a Black gay man in the United States of America, who has straight-esque privilege, because I do not match the stereotypical flamboyant boa glitter, that's still the idea, because of colonization, that's still the idea of. So I am often assumed to be straight. So I have straight privilege. So people will make very, anti-trans, anti-gay, anti-lesbian jokes or whatnot around me because they think I'm in the same camp. Fascinating. And I mention this because, once again, the idea has to be, in a world that works for all, where am I? In a world that works for all, where are the other people who are, I know several trans women of color. I know bunches of folk. Where, in a world that works for all, what does that mean for them? In a world where currently Indigenous women are still missing and murdered on a regular basis, and no one's looking for them. There aren't the resources, and young Black girls are being snatched and sex trafficked, and we don't have the resources, and we don't have the resources, but we got resources to send people to space in a space limo and in a submarine. That we do have the resources. Just say we have the resources. We're just not going to use them for that. Say that, because that's what it is. We have billionaires and trillionaires who, if they were being taxed effectively, so say what you mean and mean what you say. So once again, within New Thought, we don't say, we are great to say, and I'm going to share real quick. So we know our global vision, for example. We say, let's see, hold on. We envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. Like, that's one of our global heart visions, right? And I know from experience, we will vision and we will vision and we will vision until it's paralysis of analysis. And we don't move to action. So one of the things that I did just for me to have greater clarity is, what does that look like when I say, I don't want to vision anymore? What do I want to do as a verb? We create communities where all people, all beings, and all life are treated, honored, and celebrated as expressions of God. That gives me clarity of, what does it mean to diversity and equity? Great. But what we typically do with it is, it's a numbers game. We want to get the numbers we want more chips in the cookie. Like, we want to get some more. It's a numbers game. Real diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're celebrating the diversity and the inclusion. Don't just include the Black folks. Don't just include the gay folks. Honor and celebrate the unique way that God is showing up in, through, and as them. So for me, the end goal is actually putting a foundation of what it means when we are not minister-centric. So if we're not minister-centric, and that whole hierarchy of minister is here and the minister, it's like I'm the Pope. Like, hey, I'm close to God. So you need. So if we're going to, and not even necessarily invert the triangle, but Stretch it out so the triangle is now a circle.
Mm.
And we talk about relationships, the relationship that the minister has with, not over people. So now the minister, I'm one of y'all. So I got the same look. I had gas last night, just like you did on Monday. I ain't no different. Just because I can quote Holmes, don't mean I don't get bubble guts. So I'm just letting you know. So how do we really start bringing this home so that there's a mass exodus of people who are leaving New Thought? Why? Like, let's really ask, what is it? Because they're being traumatized by ministers and practitioners and whatnot. Okay, so what does it look like to really build relationships within this and really start to connect with people in a way where our theology is relevant, where we're not just giving quotes? And I don't care who the quotes are. You can quote Lao Tzu. That's fine. Quote Bruce Lee. Okay, that's fine. But if you're not living and embodying, Dr. Holmes said, and I'm paraphrasing, the only God that any of us would ever know intimately and understand intimately is the one that we embody. We keep talking about God out there, even though we claim we're not, but it's God out there versus God not even in here, God right here and right here everywhere. When do we start doing that? Because I believe that if we start doing that, it's going to change how leadership shows up organizationally and in community. It's going to change how finances operate, because in a minister-centric model, it's you're in the congregation. I need you to tithe. I need you to tithe more. I need you. I know you eating cat food on a regular basis because you have a difficult time paying your rent. But what's in your consciousness? If you had a prosperity consciousness, then you would. Okay, so it's a money game now. So if we change that entire energy around all of it, all of that stuff would change by default. But we cling and we hold on to yesteryear. We cling and we hold on to what was versus what can be. The only reason Bayard Rustin, Dr. King, Malcolm X, Audre Lorde, any number of Bishop Carlton Pearson, Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray, like we've got Dr. James Cone, Howard Thurman, like the list could go on and on. The only reason that they could really do what they were doing was because they were vision casters. They saw it and they were willing to put their money, quote unquote, where their mouth was. They were willing to march. They were willing to sit at the counters and have hot coffee and ketchup poured over them. We don't have any of that fire. We don't have the fire of the gay liberation movement. We don't have the fire of the civil rights movement. We don't have the fire that ACT UP had. We don't have the fire that they got down there singing Kumbaya. We don't have the fire at all. So when Dr. King says, unless the church regains its prophetic vision, where we're stuck is, you say, what? We're going to go vision. Come, let's vision. What is God's highest? I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. That's not a prophetic vision. Right. Prophetic vision is what's out there possible in the year 2024, not 1812.
And you know, the interesting thing about a prophetic vision or prophetic anything is that it drops in. It's not that I sit down and try to come up with the prophetic vision. The prophetic vision comes from being prepared, for preparing myself to be a vessel to pick up that vibration, to pick up that tuning, so that when it comes in, it's like, you know, the old movie theater, you cut the thing on and the light comes down and the image appears, right? And that's what we've lost, I believe, in all spheres of life, is because we don't look at life as an integrated whole. No matter how much we dissect life to understand it, and we have gotten tremendous amount of understanding from the dissection process. If I dissect a bike to all of its parts, spokes, wheels, gears, you know, I still don't have a bike, right? It's only when those things come together that I have a bike. And then to be really cheeky about it, it doesn't even become a bike until somebody rides it, right? It's only an idea. So there's this thing about, as you're saying, and is this: how do we act? How do we move these ideas forward, not as sacred cows on the altar, but as living examples of what it means to be human or animal, or pick something that we've dissected from the whole, that we have revered or said that it has more juice than that. And when we put it back together, it inherently gives you more insights, more value, more this, more that, than we could ever imagine. And then it sets up the groundwork for the next prophetic vision, because I'm paying attention, I'm in tune, I'm there.
Right.
So,
wow. All right, folks, we need to take a quick break and let a couple of our sponsors say hello to you and let our guest grab a sip of water and such. However, I'm digging this conversation on prophetic vision. I think we're going to have to follow that up just a little bit right after the break. So please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Let your friends and family know what we're talking about here today. We're going to take a quick 1.5-minute break, and we will be right back with more of New Thought Today. Stay tuned. And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. Our special guest today, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. He is the spiritual director and founding minister of the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts. And we've been having a great conversation. If you're just joining us, you'll have to catch up a little later. But we've been talking about prophetic new thought a little bit here, prophetic vision. And about a year ago or someone gave me the compliment of saying I had a prophetic voice, and it kind of just got me kicking around the idea of, well, what does that really mean, and how does that show up, and can I embrace that? And that led me down the trail of a search for prophetic new thought. Now, we've kind of mentioned this today, and this isn't something that you just say, oh, I'm going to go have a prophetic thought. It's that partially that divine download, and the term originates with Dr. Liza Rankow, who has been a guest on this program, and she used it about almost 20 years ago now to directly point at people like Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith and others, Reverend Dr. Deborah Johnson, who's going to be a guest on this program here in a couple of weeks, to draw together a voice that is both new thought, but is also very socially active. And it feels to me like this idea, this thought around decolonizing new thought has that sense of it is the mixture between standing in our principles, not necessarily the practices as they have been shared over the years, but the principles behind them, and a commitment to a more socially active voice and perspective and engagement in the movement and therefore the world. And so the question, Raymont, for you is, my dear brother man, how do you see that taking form, and what forms are showing up for you in this? Where are you being given opportunities to perhaps practice and be the voice, a prophetic voice of New Thought?
Ooh, is it Christmas yet? Okay, so for me, one of the things that immediately comes to my mind, just in the whole general idea, is because my background is the Baptist church tradition, and in the Black church, having someone prophesy over your life basically meant they caught the vision of your infinite potential and they spoke it. So you're not doing well in school. No, what the Lord is laying on my heart to share with you is that you are a genius who is capable of. And in the sharing of that, I see it too. I see it too. And now that I can see it, I now go along the steps of making it happen. Mm-hmm. So within the scope of New Thought, we don't speak prophetically. Because if we did, it would cause, and I mean for real, prophetically, because to do so as a whole would mean changing things in the way that they show up. Mm-hmm. Now, I would venture to say, I can't guarantee, but I would venture that one of the reasons the person referred to you as a prophetic voice is because this entire network is so groundbreaking, revolutionary in scope and vision that it aligns with, you don't understand. You think New Thought, church, go to church on Sunday, meditation on Wednesday. No, what I'm saying is I'm going to create this network that is a global thing that pulls voices from the entire planet, and I'm going to present them on this network in a way that's prophetic. Mm-hmm. Within the scope of my life, one of the things that I do is I no longer see ministry as, remember that Hungry Man thing, the compartment, the corn. I used to see ministry is this. And in fact, it's part of the theme for the month of November, sacred, the profane, and the mundane. Get rid of the word soup. Let's just, For me, ministry is life. Yes. Just straight, plain and simple. If I'm having a not so great day and Z is like, hey Ray, what's up? What's going on? And I say, and I express whatever it is. And Z says, what do you need from me? What do you need? You need me to listen? You need me to hold space? That's ministering to me. Yeah. As a friend, as a brother, not as a minister, as a relationship, as a friend and as a brother, ministering. Self-care is how I am ministering to my own life and well-being, etc. Ministry is life. So for me, it's prophetic New Thought means I don't see this just as what I do on Sunday or whatever day of the week. It's as the co-lead for the local chapter of Moms Demand Action. How do I bring what I know into this sphere of working toward changing the fetish of guns and policies regarding guns? As a recent Everytown Survivor Fellow appointee, how do I speak about having been a gun survivor of over 30 plus gun violent related issues? How do I speak about that? From the point of principle, based on what we teach and what we talk about. In terms of when we talk about oneness within New Thought, we generally, not always, but generally talk about oneness in the way that we used to, and some still do, talk about the United States of America as a great grand melting pot. Stop with the melting pot. That's colonization. We want you to be so homogenized that you lose your identity. We don't see color. We don't see any of that stuff because you're just like everybody else. I don't want to be just like everybody else. If God wanted me to be like everybody else, then I would look like and be like everybody else. That which is the universe is now, how many different species of apple are there? If the universe only wanted there to be one kind of apple, there would be one kind of apple, one kind of rose, one kind of tulip. But there's a plethora of. We are meant to enjoy. So whenever we talk about oneness, whenever I'm in the room and we talk about oneness and I see it being a conversation around melting pot, I'm like, no, it's more like a mosaic, or as Dr. Tracy Brown would say, it's more like the stained glass window. It's the oneness of this made up of all the pieces that make it up. Duality is not the enemy. We live in a duality-based world. There's up, there's down, there's east, west. Like it's so rather than making it the enemy, because that's what colonization wants us to do, it's sleight of hand. Look at this hand while I pickpocket. How do we really start to say, when we're talking about duality, what are we talking about? Because referencing faith, we oftentimes reference faith as faith is the thing to have, and faith moves mountains, and yes, but there is non-life affirming faith as well. Worry is using the energy of faith towards that. Faith is believing and trusting in. I believe and I have faith and I trust in, I'm going to get pickpocketed next time I go to Hell's Kitchen in New York. Then that's where my faith is being directed. So when I say faith, am I talking about life-affirming faith or non-life-affirming faith? Shadow is not the enemy. Within the scope of colonization, we have vilified the darkness because it's synonymous with the black cat, black magic, black people, and the list could go on. So darkness isn't the enemy. The womb is dark. The soil is dark. The yin is dark. So rather than talking about, which, because we're going to be doing it in December, it's the season of light. Light is light, bright, it's because that's the great thing. Versus, now let's really talk about, because too much light I can't see.
And right, and let's talk about the fact that December is one of the highest months for suicide because of that. Right. Because there is such the emphasis on you've got to be happy and you've got to give a lot of gifts and you've got to all the stuff that you have to do to be a good human in the season of light causes a lot of harm. And I think that's an important part of this conversation is it's not just be light and the darkness goes away. We have to recognize the harm that can be done by such a one-sided perspective of life.
And additionally, and real quick, additionally, if there is no darkness, there is no light, because one without the other has absolutely no meaning, right? So that it is a wholeness. It is a pair of things that creates a oneness that we're saying that we want to live and honor and all of that. However, we've labeled one way and another the other way.
Yep, and referencing the whole, it's 'tis the season to be jolly. You better be happy and give me gifts, because in New Thought, we don't have to wait till Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa to go in. At any given day, we'll say, so, hey, Ray, how are you today? Don't let me say I don't feel well or I'm depressed or I'm sad, because the New Thought, the quotes and the verses will come a-flying. Is that possibly why so many people are not feeling? Because we are not really anchored and grounded in what it means to be a fully feeling human being who happens to also be an incarnation of the universe itself. If the universe, as us, didn't want to feel things, then we would all be Vulcans. We're meant to feel. Why in New Thought do we try to divorce ourselves from those feelings? Because those are the not good feelings. And we need everybody to be part of the Sunshine Committee, where we only talk about how happy we are. Happy, and clap your hands. Okay, yeah, I hear you. But they lost their job and soon may become part of the unhoused, and they're not feeling this message today. And they're not feeling the Ernest Holmes quotes about there's a powerful good in the universe greater than I am, greater than you are, and you can use it. They're not feeling that right now. So how do we speak the language to them so they don't commit suicide, so they don't sink further into depression and etc.? Because that's also part of the mix of how we are not really doing the prophetic vision thing. We're not really seeing and acting in a manner that's uplifting people. We're actually suppressing and oppressing people. We don't even realize we're doing it.
There's a big difference between it's all good and this sucks, and we're not done yet, and we can make it better. We can get to the good, but in the moment, this ain't what I signed up for.
Yep.
And you know, when we get back to that ground of all being, I think, which is for me, I would state it, the cycle of life, the web of life, the way of life. I can take an apple seed, which is dead. I can plant that apple seed. It will come alive if it's put in the nurturing environment. And while it's in that nurturing environment, it comes under pressure from the soil, from the sun, from the rain. And that pressure, without it, the seed does not germinate. Once it germinates, I get a tree that now gives plenty of apples. And sometimes those apples die or get eaten, and then those seeds, and they die and they get planted. And so now we had ad infinitum this whole process of life. So then when we can look at that succinctly, we begin to see that we need the pressure. We need not in some sadist, self-sacrificing way, but in a way that is natural and that comes with life itself. And you know, one quick thing in Dr. Sharif Abdullah's new book, he talks about the birthing process and the water breaking. He says no woman goes around breaking their own water.
Right.
They wait for the time, and the time is definitely inherent, right? And boom, it happens. And so when that happens, they move in concert with what's going on around them. And we have to begin. I think it was Sitting Bull said, a black elk maybe, that said, man is not the whole web of life. He's just one strand in the web of life. And whatever you do to the web, you do to yourself. And we have to really embody that to begin to think we can't just be out here willy-nilly telling people not to feel and not to do this. And because it's going to give us unwanted results.
Yep. Yep. I mean, like, what would it look like? Because I've been quoting her a lot lately. What would it look like when Mamie Till Mobley says, 2 months ago, I had an apartment in Chicago and it was nice and I was comfortable. And I used to think that whatever happens to the Negroes in Mississippi is their business and got nothing to do with me till they killed my son. And I realized that what happens to any of us anywhere had better be the business of all of us everywhere. Mm-hmm. Fannie Lou Hamer said, none of us are free till all of us are free. Mm-hmm. What would happen if New Thought embodied that? Just that by itself. Whatever happens to any of us anywhere had better be the business of all of us everywhere. Mm-hmm. Would it change how we speak about it's all God and it's all good? But like you just said, Robert, today, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
Right? Like last year, I got diagnosed with prostate cancer. I didn't sign up for that, and it wasn't in my consciousness. So,
I'm sure it wasn't a good journey.
Right? All the way to surgery, and then even in the healing still now. Some days I'm like, you know what? Today I'm going to sit down and watch TV today. I ain't doing nothing. Yeah, because it's still a part of it. It's the journey. But to say it's all God, yeah, in the absolute, just like I tell people, in the absolute, H2O is perfect and pristine. But H2O in Flint, Michigan, not so much.
Not so much. Yep.
So in the absolute, well, I don't care what's going on in the absolute. Just like I don't care right now, what's the weather on Mars? I don't care. I ain't there and ain't planning on going there. So let's talk about not the absolute. Let's talk about in the relative. In the relative, what are we feeling today? In the relative, what are we afraid of? In the relative, how do we move together as community within the principles and the values of science of mind and spirit, or unity, or agape, divine science, etc.? How do we, because even that, why are we all these different denominations and we don't get the opportunity to come together under the auspices of New Thought? Where is that convention for all independent, etc., New Thought folks to come together?
Mm-hmm.
It happens in October at Unity Village with the affiliated New Thought Network. And as a board member, I'm not saying that because I am a board member. I am saying that because I think that it's a very important point you're making. The compartmentalization of New Thought over time has been a detriment to the proliferation of this philosophy. And I do see organizations such as the Affiliated New Thought Network and International New Thought Alliance, INTA, they are doing that type of work as well, to start to bring the leaders and people like yourself, people that are having a new thought on new thought together in a way where we can start having these meaningful conversations. And I want to shout you out again, Raymont, before we're running out of time here. And before we do run completely out of time, I want to shout out again that you may not have asked for it, but you put the post out there, and in a public forum such as Facebook, I'm not surprised you've had a lot of attention on the idea of decolonizing New Thought. I have personally recommended a member or two to the group that I feel want to be a part, that I already know want to be a part of this conversation, and yet didn't know exactly how to bring it forward or how to say it without getting attacked, without being without, believe it or not, folks, hate mail exists in this movement. I think every one of us here has probably been the recipient of something of either direct, outright written condemnation or sleight of hand condemnation, but we've all been a part, and we're at a really unique juncture, I think, to bring forward a new thought on new thought. So we do need to take one more break, folks, and make sure we say thank you to our donors and sponsors. However, we're not done yet. We're going to be back in just over a minute with more here on the New Thought Media Network. Stay tuned. We've got our final thoughts coming up after the break. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors, everyone that's making this possible and helping us to share this new idea on media and new thought out into the world. We appreciate you. We love you. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a part of our community, please head on over to the website, ntmedia.org. And over there, you'll find a tab and a link that says community. Check that out. That's our new community platform, free social network for anyone that wants to be involved with a deeper conversation around the future of new thought. All right, Dr. Raymont, before we get out of here, we do always have our final thoughts. And the beauty of it is we don't make our guest go first. We make Elzia do that.
Yes. And I do it gladly. I do it gladly. And I think, the final thought I think that I take away from here is we being the collective we, those who are new thought or not, if there's a declaration that needs to be made, but we must begin to live a systemic life that is not about controlling life, because life has its own trajectory. We must become ingrained with, in tune with, and aligned with the spirit of life that is always prime. And life includes birth and death, not life and death. Life is made up of the two parts, birth and death ad infinitum.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dr. Raymont.
So for me, final thoughts would be just an invitation for folks to, one, contemplate it themselves and to get into conversation about what are all the ways that we take all of this for granted, in terms of resources. Whatever the resource is, this lens wipe for my glasses, where did the packaging come from? Where were the trees? How many people? Simply thinking about the lives, the humans who made it possible for this, including those who may have become the stepping stones because someone was on their neck and on their back. Because if we're really going to think about the resources, then land back, #land back, because this land belongs to the indigenous peoples. So simply thinking about, where did the shirt come from? Where did the threads come from? Where did my food come from? How many hands made it possible? Starts to invite us to think connectivity. And the more we're connected, the more I am able to see each person as brother, sister, sibling, the more we're going to come together at the same table and make sure everyone is nourished and fed versus othering, ostracizing, and hurting.
Wow. I love versus othering, ostracizing, and hurting. Thank you. That's a great way to describe what I think happens in a lot of places and in a lot of ways. For me today, this conversation in a lot of ways comes back to this piece of getting involved, being a voice. There are no sidelines in this. There were, and there have been. And I want to affirm and claim a life where there are no sidelines anymore, where whatever it is for you to get involved, let your voice be heard, let your heart be heard, let your hands do some of the lifting. And if you're out there thinking, yeah, I'm going to sit on the sidelines and you guys let me know what you come up with, that's not going to do it. Get on Facebook, search out Decolonizing New Thought, and then join the conversation. And if that's all it is, trust that is enough. But what I believe is we're each in our own way being called to a greater expression of this thing called New Thought, a greater demonstration of how these principles work. But it is in support of creating a world that works for all life, not just my life. And not just those that look like me or think like we do, but creating a world that works for all life. Brother Raymont, so grateful that you are here. It almost seems redundant to say, will you come back?
Let me know. I will put it on the calendar.
There we go.
There are many a hornet nest to kick.
I guess I would be remiss in saying if you ever wanted a regular time and day to kick hornet nests.
Oh, I know. I trust it. It's in there, and Tracy and I have had conversations, so you'll be hearing from me eventually.
Right on. I'll make sure that I chat with Tracy about that then. She might twist your arm a little quicker than I do. Folks, if you're wondering what you're watching, this is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. I'm Reverend Robert on behalf of my co-host Reverend LZ, and our special guest, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. We want to thank you for being with us. Please do share today's conversation with your friends, and if you'd like to add to the conversation, you're welcome to send us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. That's ministertalk@ntmedia.org. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what other conversations you'd like us to have on this program. We'd be happy to do it. Until next time, we want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.